The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council smelled like a mixture of sulfur, ozone, and what I can only describe as burnt cabbage. Trust me, when you have 14 different species crammed into one biodome, each breathing a slightly different atmospheric composition, the result is never pleasant. My name is Crix, and I served as the junior transcriptionist for Sector 7 of the Council. It was my job to record everything, every insult, every threat, every pompous declaration made by the so-called enlightened beings who governed our corner of the universe. And let me tell you, on the day humanity sent their first ambassador to address the Council, I wished I had called in sick. The humans had been petitioning for membership for 3 standard cycles. 3 whole cycles of paperwork, bureaucratic nonsense, and what the Council privately called the entertainment phase. You see, the Council loved nothing more than watching primitive species grovel for acceptance. It was sport to them. Cruel, petty sport. I should mention that humanity had only achieved faster than light travel 2 cycles ago. By galactic standards, they were infants. Babies. They had no right to even think about sitting among the Council members, who represented civilizations thousands, sometimes millions of years old. The viewing screens flickered to life as the human transport vessel docked with the station. I adjusted my recording implant and waited. The Council members around me, each perched on their respective hovering platforms, began to chuck. The Vrelnax delegation, a species of 6-armed cephalopods who considered themselves the intellectuals of the galaxy, were already composing what they thought were witty remarks. I wonder if they will arrive wearing their primitive cloth coverings. Hissed Councillor Thex, his beak clicking with amusement. Perhaps they have not yet invented proper thermal regulation. Councillor Yana, a crystalloid being from the Forge Worlds, chimed in with her reverberating voice. My sources indicate they still consume other biological organisms for sustenance. How barbaric! Silence, commanded High Councillor Vren, though even he could not hide the smirk on his reptilian face. Let us at least pretend to offer them dignity before we deny their petition. Again, the chamber doors opened with a pneumatic hiss. What walked through was not what anyone expected. The human ambassador was tall by their species standards, maybe 6 feet in their measurement system. She wore a simple black suit, tailored perfectly with what appeared to be a small pin on her lapel. Her hair was pulled back severely, and her eyes, those distinctly human eyes with their limited visual spectrum, scanned the room with an expression I could not quite read. Behind her walked a single aide, a young man carrying nothing but a small datapad. No entourage, no gifts, no desperate displays of technology to prove their worth. The silence stretched for a moment too long. Members of the Galactic Council, the ambassador said, her voice clear and steady through the translation matrix. I am Ambassador Victoria Kane. Humanity thanks you for this audience. Councillor Thex could not contain himself. We have reviewed your petition, Ambassador Kane, for the 3rd time, and I must say we find it difficult to understand what humanity believes it can contribute to this assembly. Victoria nodded slowly. I understand your concern. Concern? Yana's crystalline form vibrated with what passed for laughter among her people. It is not concern, human. It is fact. Your technology is primitive. Your worlds number only 4, and 3 of those are barely habitable. Your lifespans are laughably short. Your bodies are fragile. You have no psionic abilities, no quantum manipulation capabilities, no dimensional folding technology. You are in every measurable way inferior. I watched the human carefully. Most species, when faced with such an assessment, would either rage or grovel. Victoria Kane did neither. You are absolutely correct, she said simply. That caused another wave of silence. Vren leaned forward on his platform. You agree with this assessment? Of course, Victoria replied. By every metric you just listed, humanity is indeed inferior to every species in this chamber. We cannot argue with facts. Vex's tentacles writhed with confusion. This was not how these meetings typically went. Then why are you here? Why waste our time with a petition you know will be denied? Victoria walked forward, her footsteps echoing in the massive chamber. She stopped at the center platform, hands clasped behind her back. Because you are measuring the wrong things. Oh, the laughter that followed. It bounced off the walls, a cacophony of alien mirth. The Vrelnax were practically falling off their platforms. Even Vren allowed himself a deep chuckle. The wrong things? Yana managed between vibrations. Pray tell, human, what should we be measuring? Victoria let the laughter continue for exactly 7 seconds. I know because I counted. Then she spoke, and something in her tone made the room fall silent again. Adaptation. 1 word. That is all she said. but the way she said it made my dorsal spines tingle. Counselor Thex recovered first. Adaptation? Every species adapts, human. It is basic evolutionary theory. You are not special. You are right again, Victoria said, and I noticed the corners of her mouth turn up slightly. Was that a smile? Every species adapts. But let me tell you a story if I may. About a species you might find interesting. Breen waved a clawed hand dismissively. Make it brief. Victoria gestured to her aide, who tapped the datapad. A holographic display appeared above the central platform showing a blue and green planet. Earth. I realize this is our home world, Victoria began. Approximately 70,000 years ago by our calendar there was a volcanic eruption on our planet. A supervolcano we call it. The ash it released blocked out our sun for years. Temperatures dropped globally. Food sources vanished. Most life died. Tragic, Yana said, though her tone suggested she found it anything but. And yet you survived, clearly. So what is your point? My point, counselor, is that when that happened, the entire human population, our entire species, was reduced to between 3,000 and 10,000 individuals. I felt my breathing slow. I did not know where she was going with this, but something about the way she spoke made me want to hear more. 3,000, Thex repeated. That is nothing. A rounding error. Surely this proves our point about your species' weakness. Perhaps, Victoria said. But here's what makes it interesting. We survived. With no technology, no tools beyond sharpened rocks, no shelter beyond caves and animal skins. We survived. And not only did we survive, but within 70,000 years we went from nearly extinct to landing on our moon, splitting the atom, and eventually achieving faster-than-light travel. She paused, letting that sink in. But that is not even the interesting part, she continued. The interesting part is that during those 70,000 years we faced ice ages, plagues, predators that could tear us apart with ease, and countless other extinction-level events. Each time we adapted. Each time we survived, not because we were strong but because we were stubborn. Counselor Vryn shifted on his platform. Stubbornness is not a qualification for council membership. No, Victoria agreed. But let me ask you something. How many of your species have experienced a near-extinction event and recovered? The silence that followed was different from before. I looked around at the council members, and I realized that none of them were laughing anymore. The Vrylnak civilization is 47,000 years old, Victoria continued, her voice taking on an almost conversational tone. Impressive. Truly. But in those 47,000 years, how many existential threats have you faced? Thex's tentacles went rigid. We have faced many challenges, I am sure you have. But how many times has your population been reduced to a few thousand individuals? How many times have you had to rebuild from scratch? She turned to Yana. The Forge Worlds. Your technology is beautiful. Your understanding of quantum mechanics is something we can only dream of achieving. But you live on stable worlds with stable climates and stable resources. When was the last time you had to adapt to survive rather than adapt to thrive? Yana said nothing. Victoria looked up at Vryn. High Counselor. The Draconis have ruled this council for 10,000 years. Your wisdom is legendary. Your peace has endured. But tell me, when was the last time your species faced true hardship? Not political complexity or resource allocation challenges. I mean true desperate clawing survival. Vryn's eyes narrowed. You dare to lecture us on hardship? Not at all, Victoria said quickly. I am simply pointing out that humanity's apparent weakness might actually be our strength. We are not asking to join this council because we have the best technology or the longest history. We are asking to join because we bring something none of you have needed for a very long time. And what would that be? Thex demanded. Victoria raised one finger. Just one finger. The gesture was so simple, so human that it took me a moment to realize what she was doing. She was counting. Perspective. The word hung in the air like a gravity well. You see, Victoria continued, lowering her hand. Humanity has been the underdog for our entire existence. Every single day of our evolution has been a fight. We have fought our environment, our predators, our diseases, and most destructively ourselves. We have nearly destroyed our own planet 3 times in the last century alone. We have created weapons capable of ending all life on our world, and we came terrifyingly close to using them. She began to walk slowly around the central platform, and I noticed that every council member's eyes followed her, but we did not use them. Do you know why? No one answered. Because at the last moment, when we stood on the brink of annihilation, we chose differently. Not because we were smart. Not because we were enlightened, but because we were terrified. We adapted. We changed. We learned. Victoria stopped walking and faced the council directly. Right now, humanity is weak. We admit this freely. But weakness has taught us things that strength never could. It has taught us caution. It has taught us creativity. It has taught us that survival sometimes means cooperation, even with those we disagree with, even with those we fear. Counselor Yana's form flickered. You speak of cooperation, yet your own history is filled with warfare. Your species has killed more of its own kind than any disease or disaster. Exactly, Victoria said, and her expression hardened. We know what we are capable of. We have seen the darkness in ourselves and survived it. Can any of you say the same? The question landed like a physical blow. I saw Thex recoil slightly, saw Yana's light dim, saw Vren's claws grip his armrest tighter. The Vrelnaks have not known war for 20,000 years, Victoria continued. The Forge worlds have existed in perfect harmony for 30,000. The Drafraps have maintained peace through superior force for 10 millennia. These are achievements, true achievements, and humanity respects them deeply. She paused, and when she spoke again her voice was softer but somehow more intense. But what happens when that peace is threatened? What happens when a new species emerges, one that does not respect your laws or your technology or your ancient wisdom? What happens when your perfect civilizations face something unexpected? We would adapt, Vrin said, but his voice lacked conviction. Would you? Victoria asked. Or would you be so secure in your superiority that you would not see the threat until it was too late? You mock humanity for being primitive, for being weak, for being young. But our youth means we remember what it is like to struggle. Our weakness means we cannot afford arrogance. Our primitive nature means we think in ways you may have forgot. She gestured to the display, which now showed images of human history. Wars, disasters, triumphs, failures. All of it laid bare. We are not asking to join this council because we deserve it by your standards, Victoria said. We are asking to join because we offer something you need, even if you do not realize it yet. We offer the perspective of survivors. We offer the creativity of the desperate. We offer the adaptability of a species that has never had the luxury of comfort. The chamber was completely silent now. I could hear my own breathing, feel my heart's beating in different rhythms, and most importantly, Victoria continued, we offer a warning. That got everyone's attention. A warning? Bryn asked slowly. Victoria nodded. The galaxy is changing, High Counselor. I know you have noticed. New species are achieving spaceflight at an accelerating rate. Resources are becoming contested. The established order, your order, is being questioned, and humanity, despite our weakness, despite our primitive technology, has already encountered 3 species in the outer reaches that the Council has never heard of. Species that are not friendly. Species that do not respect the rules you have built your peace upon. I felt a chill run through my body. This was news to me, and based on the sudden tension in the room, it was news to the Council as well. You are bluffing, Tex said, but he sounded uncertain. Victoria's aide tapped the datapad again. 3 images appeared. 3 species I had never seen before. One looked like living crystal, another like floating gas clouds, the third like something I could not even properly comprehend, the shardlings, the nebulae, and the voidborn, Victoria said. We encountered them all within the last cycle. We have shared this intelligence with the Council in our reports, but I suspect those reports were filed away without being read. After all, what could primitive humanity possibly discover that the great Galactic Council did not already know? The silence that followed was deafening. The tension in the Grand Assembly Hall had shifted from mockery to something else entirely. I could feel it in the way Councillor Vrin's claws had stopped tapping, in the way Yana's crystalline form had gone completely still, in the way Thex's 6 arms had all drawn close to his body in what I recognized as a defensive posture. Victoria Kane stood in the center of the platform, her hands still clasped behind her back, waiting. She had the patience of someone who knew she had already won but was gracious enough to let her opponents realize it themselves. These species, Vrin finally said, his voice lacking its earlier confidence. You claim to have encountered them, yet we have had surveillance systems in place for thousands of years. How is it possible that humanity, with your limited scanning technology, detected them when we did not? Victoria's expression did not change. Because, High Counselor, they did not want to be detected by you. But they were not particularly concerned about being detected by us. Councillor Thex leaned forward, his tentacles writhing with agitation. That makes no sense. Why would they reveal themselves to an inferior species while hiding from us? For the same reason a predator ignores the rabbit while watching the lion. Victoria replied calmly. We are not a threat. You are. I watched as the implications of that statement rippled through the chamber. The council members exchanged glances, their various forms of communication passing between them in frequencies. I could barely detect. You said you encountered them. Yana spoke up, her voice carrying a vibration I had never heard from her before. Was that fear? What happened during these encounters? Victoria gestured to her aide again. The holographic display shifted to show what appeared to be recordings. The first showed a human exploration vessel approaching what looked like a cluster of geometric shapes that defied normal physics. The shardlings appeared at the edge of our explored space 14 months ago, Victoria explained. Our science vessel, the Meridian, attempted first contact protocols, standard greeting, universal mathematics, all the procedures outlined in the Council's own guidelines. The recording showed the geometric shapes suddenly expanding, surrounding the human ship. Lights flickered across the hull of the Meridian. They did not respond to any of our communications, Victoria continued. Instead, they interfaced directly with our computer systems, bypassed every firewall, every security protocol we had. In 17 seconds, they had complete access to everything on that ship. Impossible, Dex breathed. Our own quantum encryption would take years to crack, even with focused effort. I am sure it would, Victoria said. But as you pointed out earlier, our technology is primitive. Perhaps that is why they found it so easy. She paused. Or perhaps they have encountered quantum encryption before and learned how to break it instantly. The implications of that hung in the air like poison gas. What did they do with the information? Vryn demanded. They copied everything, Victoria said. Our star charts, our history, our literature, our mathematics, our biological data, everything. And then they left. No communication, no hostility, no explanation. They simply vanished. And you did not report this immediately. Yana's form was flickering rapidly now, definitely agitated. We did report it, Victoria corrected gently. 12 months ago. The report was filed under reference code Delta 79. I believe it was categorized as unlikely to be accurate and filed for later review. I saw Vryn gesture to one of his aides, who began frantically searching through data streams. The look on the aide's face confirmed Victoria's statement. The nebulae encounter was different, Victoria continued, pulling up the next recording. This one showed what appeared to be clouds of luminous gas coalescing around a human mining operation on an asteroid. Our miners on Installation 17 encountered them 6 months ago. Unlike the shardlings, the nebulae attempted communication. Or at least we think it was communication. The recording showed the clouds pulsing with different colors and patterns. Then suddenly, 3 of the human miners collapsed. What happened to them? I found myself asking, breaking protocol. Victoria glanced in my direction, and I saw something in her eyes. Sadness. Maybe. They survived, she said. But they were unconscious for 3 days. When they woke up, they all reported the same experience. They said they had been shown things. Images, feelings, concepts. The nebulae were not communicating with words or mathematics. They were communicating directly with consciousness itself. Telepathy, Vryn said flatly. We have encountered telepathic species before. Not like this, Victoria countered. Your telepathic species communicate thoughts, emotions, simple concepts. The nebulae showed our miners the history of entire civilizations. They showed them the rise and fall of empires. They showed them wars that consumed galaxy, and they showed them one more thing. She paused, and I realized she was building dramatic tension deliberately. It was working. They showed them the council, Victoria said quietly. They showed them this very chamber, this very meeting. Except in the vision, the platforms were empty. The lights were off, and something else occupied the space where you all sit now. Something our miners could not describe because their minds could not comprehend it. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Counselor Thex made a sound I had never heard from a Vrelnax before, something between a hiss and a whimper. You are trying to frighten us, Yana accused, but her voice lacked conviction. I am trying to warn you, Victoria corrected. There is a difference. The nebulae left after showing our miners these visions. We do not know what they wanted or why they chose to share this information, but we took it seriously enough to increase our defensive preparations and accelerate our petition to this council. In the third species? Vryn asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The Void-born, Victoria's expression became grave. We encountered them 3 weeks ago. Or rather, they encountered us. The final recording appeared, and I immediately wished it had not. The image showed a human military vessel, heavily armed by their standards, on patrol near what they called the Outer Rim. Suddenly, the starfield behind the ship seemed to tear open like fabric being ripped apart. What emerged defied description. It was darkness given form, absence given shape. It seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and looking at the recording made my eyes hurt. The Void-born did not attempt communication, Victoria said, her voice tight. They did not scan us or study us. They attacked immediately. The recording showed the human ship firing every weapon it had. Energy beams, missiles, kinetic rounds, everything humanity had developed in its brief time with advanced technology. Nothing touched the creature. The weapons simply disappeared into it as if they had never existed. The ship was destroyed in 43 seconds, Victoria continued. We lost 117 people, but before the ship was destroyed, they managed to transmit one final message. She played an audio recording. The voice was human, male, speaking rapidly but clearly despite the obvious terror. This is Captain Marcus Webb of the Sentinel. We are under attack by unknown hostile. Weapons ineffective. It is not destroying us, it is erasing us. Ship systems failing not from damage but from absence. It is making us not exist. If anyone receives this, do not engage. Do not approach. It is not trying to kill us. It is trying to unmake us. The recording ended with a sound. I will never forget. Not an explosion, not a scream, but a sort of inverse sound. Like reality itself sighing as something was removed from it. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Councillor Vryn spoke, his voice shaking slightly. And you believe these 3 species pose a threat to the Council? Victoria turned to face him fully. I believe, High Councillor, that these 3 species represent a change in the galactic order. A change that the Council is not prepared for because you have not had to be prepared for anything in thousands of years. She walked closer to Vryn's platform, looking up at the massive reptilian leader. Humanity is weak. We have established this fact repeatedly, but our weakness has kept us sharp. We cannot afford to ignore threats. We cannot afford to dismiss reports as unlikely. We cannot afford the luxury of complacency. What exactly are you proposing? Thex asked, his earlier mockery completely gone from his voice. Victoria raised that single finger again, and once more every eye in the chamber focused on it. First, she said, admit that you need us. Not because we are powerful, not because we have superior technology, but because we have perspective you lack. We see threats you miss because we are used to being threatened. We adapt to danger because we have never known true safety. She raised a second finger. Second, grant humanity provisional membership in the Council. Not full membership, we understand we have not earned that yet. But a voice, a seat at the table, access to your technology and resources, and in exchange access to our intelligence network and our unique perspective. A third finger went up. Third, take the threat seriously. These 3 species are out there, and if humanity with our primitive sensors could detect them, then they are not hiding anymore. They are preparing for something. What that something is we do not know, but I would rather face it together than divide it. She lowered her hand. That is what humanity proposes. Not a plea for charity. Not begging for acceptance. A mutual agreement between parties who need each other, even if one party only just realized it. Councillor Vryn sat back on his platform, his eyes distant. I could see him calculating, weighing options, considering possibilities. The other council members waited for his decision, as they always did. Finally he spoke. Ambassador Kane, your proposal is unusual, unprecedented in fact. The Council does not make hasty decisions, especially not based on fear. I am not asking you to decide based on fear, Victoria replied. I am asking you to decide based on wisdom. The wisdom that comes from recognizing when circumstances have changed. Vryn's mouth curled into what might have been a smile. You are very clever, human. You come here appearing weak and humble, allowing us to mock you, building our confidence. Then you present information designed to shake that confidence. It is an effective tactic. It would be a tactic if the information was false, Victoria said. Everything I have shown you can be verified. Send your own ships to investigate. Interview our miners, our soldiers, our scientists. We are not trying to manipulate you, High Councillor. We are trying to save you. Save us? Anna laughed, but it sounded hollow. You, A species that has barely left its own solar system claiming you will save civilizations millions of years old. Victoria turned to face the crystalloid counselor. Yes. Because sometimes the newest student sees the problem the old masters missed. Sometimes fresh eyes spot what experienced ones overlook, and sometimes the species that has spent its entire existence fighting for survival knows how to fight better than those who have forgotten what fighting means. She spread her arms wide, addressing the entire chamber. I am not saying humanity is superior. I am saying humanity is necessary. Right now, in this moment, you need what we have to offer. And whether you admit it or not, you know I am right. The silence stretched. I watched the council members, saw the doubt in their postures, heard the uncertainty in their silence. Victoria had done something remarkable. She had taken humanity's weakness and turned it into strength. She had taken their primitive nature and made it valuable. She had taken every insult thrown at her and converted it into a reason for inclusion. We will need to deliberate, Vryn finally said. This decision cannot be made in a single session. Of course, Victoria agreed. But while you deliberate, High Counselor, consider this. Every day you wait is a day those three species move closer to whatever goal they have. Every day you delay is a day you remain vulnerable. Humanity cannot force you to act, but we can choose who we share our intelligence with. And if the Council decides we are not worthy of membership, well, there are other species out there who might be more interested in cooperation. It was a bluff, probably, but it was a good one. I saw Vryn's eyes narrow. You would bargain with species outside the Council's authority. We would bargain with whoever takes us seriously, Victoria replied calmly. Humanity learned long ago that beggars cannot be choosers, but we also learned that sometimes the beggar has something the king needs, and right now we have information you need, perspective you need, and adaptability you need. She straightened her jacket, a very human gesture that somehow carried enormous weight. I will leave you to your deliberations. Humanity will await your decision, but I will leave you with one final thought. She paused, making sure every being in that chamber was listening. In our history there was a moment when the established powers of our world mocked a small nation for being weak and backwards. They thought themselves superior in every way. And then that small nation changed the course of our entire civilization because they had something the powers lacked. They had nothing to lose. They had motivation born of desperation. And they had the adaptability that comes from constant struggle. Victoria smiled, and it was not a nice smile. The established powers learned too late that sometimes the scrappy underdog wins. Not because they are stronger, but because they want it more. Because they have to win to survive. She turned and began walking toward the exit, her aide following silently behind. At the door she paused and looked back over her shoulder. Take your time deliberating, High Counselor. But remember, the threats I described do not wait for committee decisions. They do not care about your protocols or your traditions. And when they come, and they will come, you will wish you had said yes today. Then she was gone, the doors hissing shut behind her. The chamber erupted into chaos. Council members shouting, gesturing, arguing, Vryn calling for order, his voice barely audible over the din. Thex waving his tentacles frantically, Yana's form flickering like a strobe light. I sat there, my recording implant capturing everything, and I realized something profound. Victoria Kane had walked into this chamber expecting mockery, expecting dismissal, expecting rejection. But she had come prepared. She had turned humanity's every weakness into a strength, every criticism into a reason for inclusion, and most importantly, she had planted a seed of doubt in minds that had not questioned themselves in millennia. Whether the Council admitted humanity or not, nothing would be the same. The comfortable certainty was gone. The absolute confidence in superiority had been shaken. Victoria Kane and humanity had done in one session what no species had done in 10,000 years. They had made the Galactic Council afraid. And fear, as humanity knew better than anyone, was the greatest motivator for change. I looked down at my recording and wondered what would happen next. Would the Council accept humanity's proposal? Would they investigate the claims about the three new species? Would they adapt to this new reality, or would they cling to their old certainties until it was too late? I did not know. But for the first time in my career, I was genuinely curious about what tomorrow would bring. And as I filed my report that evening, I made sure to mark it with high priority, not because protocol demanded it, but because I had a feeling that future historians would want to know about the day everything changed. The day a human ambassador raised one finger and reminded the galaxy's most powerful beings that sometimes the measure of strength is not what you have, but what you have survived. The day humanity stopped asking for acceptance and started offering salvation. The day the council learned that pride comes before the fall and that wisdom sometimes comes from the most unexpected sources. I finished my report, transmitted it to the archives, and sat back in my chair. Somewhere in the depths of space, 3 unknown species were moving with purposes unknown. And somewhere on Earth, humanity was preparing for whatever came next. The galaxy had changed, and nobody, not even the mighty Galactic Council, could stop what was coming.